Hello, welcome to today's class. Today we'll be starting with chapter one. And so by the end of this class, you should be able to understand what is statistics. You should be able to define and recognize what data is. And then whenever you have data, how are you going to make meaning of the data? And so we are going to use this few questions here: who, what, when, where, why, and how of the data. This is going to help us to be able to analyze and make meaning from the data and also draw some conclusions. You should also be able to identify cases and variables. We have different types of variables. You should be able to identify the various types of variables when you have data. You should also be able to see whether a variable is categorical or quantitative variable, depending on its use. And so moving straight forward. So we'll start with what is statistics? So what comes in mind when you hear statistics? So statistics is about how to make good decisions with data. It provides us with the tools and techniques to understand and also draw conclusions from data. In everyday life, we make use of statistics one way or the other. For example, if we are able to know the median price of homes in a certain location, it gives us a sense of whether we are able to afford homes in those areas. Also, if you know the average cost of living in a certain place, it gives you a sense of how things are. So that also goes to help you make decisions as to whether you could be able to afford to live there or not. Or also, for example, if maybe you go for an election and then say you get maybe you people are two or more people, and then, for example, you get more than 70% of the vote cast, it also gives you a sense that a lot of people like you, a lot of people buy into your policies and all that. But if you get, say, let's say 51, it should tell you it's very close. And so maybe in the next elections, if you're not able to perform very well, stuffs could change. So that is the essence of statistics. It helps us to make informed decisions. And so in statistics, we are going to be working with data a lot. And so in view of that, what is data? And in this world, data is very, very, very important. And so I have defined data here. It's systematically recorded informations, numbers or labels together with its context. Now, usually when we talk about data, what comes to mind with a lot of people is like numbers. Yes, it could be true, but one thing you also have to have in mind is that data is not only about numbers. Data can also be pictures. Data could be audio. Data could be web pages. In this modern world, where data is very, very important. For example, sometimes I don't know if you have realized, maybe if you want to buy an item and then say you Google it. And then some way or somehow, if you also if you are browsing Instagram or Facebook, sometimes you'd see advert of the things you Googled. So that is how like data is transforming or shaping our world. And so whilst you are even browsing, Google is taking your data and all that. And so data is very, very important in our life today. And also, typically, we collect data from a population of interest by taking a sample. So now, what is a sample? A sample is a subset of a population, and then a population is the complete group of interest. And so, for example, let's say in this class, the students are 30 people, and then I want to find out the average age of the students. So if I sample or I take 10 students out of the 30, those 10 students represent the sample. So they are the subset of the entire 30 students. And so if I take the 10 students and I ask them about their age and I find the average, I could use those information to infer on the population. And so that is what a sample means. It's a subset of the population. And it is very, very important because it is not every situation where we could be able to get the entire population. So, for example, if you want to find some information about deers in the United States, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get all the deers in the United States. But then it's going to be more reasonable if you use a sample of the deers. And so there are situations where it's very difficult for you to get the entire population, where sample is very, very important. And sometimes too, you could also utilize samples in your research, among others. But a population means it's the complete group of interest. So for example, like the example I used with the average age of the students in this class, if I decide to use all the 30 students, that is what the total population of the people in the class. And so then it means that I'm relying on the population. And when we have data, before we could be able to make any meaning of the data, we need to be able to identify the who, the why, where, when, how of the data. Knowing this is going to help us to be able to make meaning of the data. For example, let's say we have this information here. This age, height, and eye colors, they are variables. And so what the answer is that they answer the what. What information did we get from these people? And then the rules, which is Alice, these rules here, they are the what? The records or the cases. And so they answer the who or about whom or about which. And then the when, it also means that when was this information, where was it, how did we get this information? So those questions gives you a sense of how to analyze the data. And so this height, eye color, age, they are all variables. Like I did say that they answer the what. Let's look at an example where we'll be able to implement all these um, things we've talked about, the who, the why, the when. So when we look at this example here, now spend time to read. It says that in 2004, a software company trying to find ways to boost sales over their competitors compiled this data about consumers. So what did they take? They took the age, the weekly consumption, also whether they prefer diet or regular, also whether they preferred cola or non-cola, and also their geographical locations. And so using this information, I want you now to think and answer these questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and how about this example? Okay, let's do that. Now we've been able to, and we've have read this. Let's try to answer them. So who or the about whom? The who, it's about consumers. We are told that they are trying to boost their sales, and so they provided the survey to consumers. So the whole thing was about consumers, right? And so what information, now we've answered who or the about whom, and then what information did they get from the consumers? So we're told that they got the age the weekly consumption, whether diet versus regular preference, cooler versus non-cooler preference, and also geographical location. So you see that answering this question is giving us a sense about the data. And then the next one we want to answer is when. When was this when was this survey conducted? We were told it was done in 2004. Where was this thing done? We were not told. We would have had an idea if we had information about the geographical location. But for now, we don't know. So we put here does not say. Why was this survey conducted, or why was this research done? Because the company is trying to boost sales over their competitors. So when they have this information, they are going to make sense of it and see how they are going to boost their sales. How was this information done? Or how was this information collected? It does not say. Was it through a survey? We do not know. And so we put does not say. And so answering these questions about this problem on this example on top gives us a sense or gives us an idea about the survey and helps us to be able to make meaning out of it. Any questions? Okay, let's proceed. Okay, so we are still on this chapter 1. So for example, if I want to know the average age of students in this class and I designed a survey and I sent that survey to you guys. So those who respond to the survey are called respondents. If I want to see how this class is going, and so I send out a survey for you to fill out. How is the pacing? Is it fast paced? Is it okay? How is the homework problems? Is it too lengthy? Is it too many? So people who respond to those surveys, they are called respondents. And also that sometimes we also conduct experiments and so people that we utilize. If we utilize people, such people are called participants or subjects. If it's not human or non-people, such as animals, plants, they are called experimental units. So for example, if maybe a drug company wants to see how effective a drug is, and then they decide to test those drugs on animals. Those animals are the experimental units. Okay, in our previous example, we tried to gather information about age, height, eye color. And I did inform you that those are variables. And so variables is about the characteristics recorded about individuals. So those are variables. And then we have two types of variables, namely the categorical variable or the quantitative variable. And so the quantitative variables, they are in units. Qualitative or the categorical variable, examples of them could be gender, eye color, favorite food. Name them. What type of car you drive. There are many of them. And then an example of quantitative variables could be age. So age is measured in years. Remember, we said that quantitative variables are measured in units. So quantitative variables, they are what? Measured in units. So age in years, height in inches or in centimeters, distance in miles. Um, uh, and you can go on. So we could start distance in miles. Okay, when it comes to the categorical or the quantitative variables, we have two types. So the nominal variable and also the ordinal variable. So the nominal variable or the ordinal variable. So the ordinal variable is a variable that reports order without natural units. So that is the ordinal variable. So an example of the ordinal variable is, say, look at Olympics. So we have gold, silver, bronze, right? It's order, but we do not have natural units. But then we know. So for example, another example too could also be educational levels. And then on the educational levels, we know that high school is less than bachelor's degree. We know bachelor's is also less than master's. Master's is also less than doctorate, right? Another example could also be customer satisfaction. So let's do customer satisfaction. So for customer satisfaction, we could also have very dissatisfied. We also have dissatisfied and then satisfied, which is also less than very satisfied. So these are all examples of ordinal variables. They have order. And then nominal variables, there is no order or ranking. For example, gender. We know gender, we have male, female, and then others. And then also marital status. Marital status, we also have single, married, divorced, widowed. So they are all examples of nominal variables. So there is no order or ranking. And then we also want to talk about identifiers. So for identifiers, they just uniquely distinguish individuals' observations in the data set. So for example, student IDs. So each student has a unique ID. So that ID distinguishes each student. Another example could also be um, social security numbers. Everybody in the United States here has a social security number, and no two persons have the same social security number. So these are examples of identifiers. Distinguish um, each individual observations in the data set. Okay, Now we have been able to, we understand what quantitative variables are, what qualitative variables are. We've also seen example of how to make sense of data by answering the who, what, why, how, where, and what have you. Let's look at this example too, and then try to also implement what we have learned. So in this example here, it says that a California hospital concerned about the rising number of low birth weight of babies collected data from 300 births over a 5-year span. They recorded the mother's age, the mother's pregnancy weight, the level of prenatal care, and whether the mother used drugs during pregnancy, such as cigarettes, alcohol. So based on this information, I want you to be able to answer the who, what, when, where, why, and how about this example here. And when you are done with that, and then you should be able to also classify the variables here into which of these variables here are categorical variable or qualitative variables, which of these variables here are numerical or quantitative. So now let's get to that. So when we look at this, the who, it's about whom or about whom, it's about 300 birth. We have that information here. So the whom or who or the cases, it's about 300 birth. And so what did they collect? So they collected the mother's age. We see the mother's age, the pregnancy weight, the level of prenatal care, and whether the mothers used drugs during pregnancy. When was this information or when was this data collected? It didn't say for example, in the previous one where we knew it was 2004, here it didn't specify a specific year or a specific period, but then it just told us about the lifespan. It says about over a 5-year span. So that is the information we have. So 5-year time span. Where was this information or where was this survey conducted? So it was done in a California hospital, right? And then why? Why was this 300 birth? Why was this information why was information collected? Why were they interested in doing this? So they were interested because they were concerned about the rising number of low birth weight of babies, right? And then how? It did not say. Did they send out survey information to pregnant women? We do not know. It didn't say. If they did send out a survey, are you sure that some of the mothers would be able to tell the truth, especially when it comes to whether they use drugs during pregnancy? And also, would they also be able to be truthful with the level of prenatal care they received? And so, how the information was done, we were not told, and so it's not given. Now we've been able to identify all the variables, the mother's age, pregnancy weight, the level of prenatal care. And so we want to classify which of these variables are categorical or numerical. So mother's age, it's measured in years. Its numbers could be 22, could be 25, could be 31. So that is what numerical. Pregnancy weight, numbers. That is also numerical. Level of prenatal care. So that is what categorical or qualitative. Whether they used drugs during pregnancy, That is also qualitative. Oh, sorry. So that is what is here. And so that is all for chapter 1. I'll see you guys in chapter 2. Have a great day.